The large meeting room on Nexus Prime Station buzzed with alien voices. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim sat at the human delegation table, watching the various species argue among themselves. Next to him, Captain So-Young Park checked her datapad while Dr. Ji-Hoon Lee organized his research files. 3 months had passed since humanity first made contact with the galactic community. 3 months of meetings, discussions, and what the aliens called negotiations. Hyunwoo knew better. These were not real negotiations. They were demands disguised as talks. The Valthron representative, a tall, blue-skinned being named Thexvara, stood up. His voice carried across the room like grinding metal. "The human delegation continues to waste our time with unrealistic proposals," he said. "Your species has been part of galactic society for mere months. You cannot expect equal treatment with civilizations that have existed for thousands of years." Hyunwoo remained calm. He had learned to hide his emotions during these meetings. The aliens seemed to enjoy making humans angry. They treated it like entertainment. "We simply ask for fair trade," Hyunwoo replied. "Our medical technology has already saved millions of lives across your worlds. Our fusion reactors provide clean energy. Our farming methods increase food production by 300%. We believe these contributions deserve proper compensation." A Zephyrian official, looking like a giant insect with purple wings, made a clicking sound that served as laughter. "Your technology is crude but functional," she said. "We offer you rare metals and star charts. This is more than generous for a primitive species." Dr. Ji-Hoon looked up from his files. His face showed barely controlled anger. For weeks he had watched aliens dismiss human achievements. They called fusion power simple heating. They called quantum computers basic calculators. They called human medicine lucky guessing. Captain So-Young leaned toward Hyunwoo. She spoke quietly in Korean. "The intercepted messages confirm our suspicions. They plan to take our colony worlds once they get access to our technology. They think we are too weak to stop them." Hyunwoo nodded slightly. Human intelligence had been monitoring alien communications since day one. The picture they painted was not pleasant. The aliens saw humans as useful tools, nothing more. They wanted human technology, human resources, and human knowledge. In return, they offered scraps. The Nexari delegate, a floating gas-filled creature, spoke through a translator device. "Your species shows promise, but you lack understanding of galactic politics. Accept our generous offer. Learn your place in the greater community." "Our place?" Hyunwoo asked. "And what place would that be?" Thexvara smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Junior partners, of course. You provide useful services. We provide guidance and protection. A fair arrangement." Dr. Ji-Hoon stood up suddenly. His chair scraped against the floor. "Fair? You want our cancer treatments that your doctors cannot match. You want our fusion designs that your engineers cannot understand. You want our crop genetics that solve food shortages you have suffered for centuries. And you offer us metal ore and old maps?" The room fell silent. Aliens stared at the human scientist with surprise. They were not used to such direct challenges. Thexavara's expression darkened. "Doctor, your species lost 12 ships and 3,000 lives during first contact. This was a learning experience. Acceptable casualties for a primitive species joining advanced society." Those words hung in the air like poison. Captain So-Young's hand moved to her weapon. Dr. Ji-Hoon's face went white with rage. Even the usually calm Hyunwoo felt his control slip. 3,000 humans had died when alien automated defenses attacked the first human exploration fleet. The aliens called it a misunderstanding. They said human ships looked like enemy vessels. They offered no apology and no compensation. They called it a learning experience. Hyunwoo stood slowly. The room watched him. For months, the aliens had grown comfortable with human patience. They mistook politeness for weakness. They thought quiet dignity meant acceptance of insults. "Counselor Thexvara," Hyunwoo said. His voice was perfectly controlled. "Thank you for making our position clear. After 3 months of discussions, we finally understand your true feelings about humanity." He gathered his papers and closed his briefcase. Captain So Young and Dr. Ji-hoon did the same. "What are you doing?" the Zephyrian official asked. "We have not finished negotiations." "Yes, we have," Hyunwoo replied. "Negotiations require mutual respect and good faith. It appears our civilizations have incompatible views on fair exchange. Humanity withdraws from these negotiations." The aliens looked confused. This was not how things worked in galactic politics. Weaker species did not walk away from stronger ones. They begged and pleaded and accepted whatever terms were offered. "You cannot simply leave," Thexvera said. "Your species needs galactic trade. You need our protection. You need our guidance." Hyunwoo paused at the door. "Counselor, we have survived. Ice ages, world wars, plagues, and the vacuum of space. We reached the stars without anyone's help. We will continue to thrive without anyone's permission." Captain So Young added, "Our ships are leaving your space within the hour. Please ensure safe passage for human vessels returning to Earth." Dr. Ji-hoon looked back at the assembled aliens. "You called our technology crude and primitive. You should have no trouble replacing it with your advanced alternatives." The human delegation walked out. Behind them, alien voices rose in argument and confusion. Some demanded immediate pursuit. Others suggested military action. A few worried voices asked what would happen to their joint projects and shared facilities. In the corridor, Captain So Young smiled grimly. "That felt good. It felt necessary," Hyunwoo corrected. "But now the real work begins. Send word to Earth. Begin Protocol 7. Dr. Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. "Full withdrawal?" "Complete separation," Hyunwoo confirmed. "We tried to join their community as equals. They made it clear we are not welcome as such, so we leave entirely." Captain So Young activated her communicator. "All human vessels, this is Captain Park. Begin immediate departure from Nexus Prime, set course for Earth. Protocol 7 is now in effect." As they walked toward the docking bay, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The aliens were finally realizing that humans were serious. They were actually leaving. Behind them, Counselor Thexvara stood in the empty meeting room, staring at the abandoned human seats. For the first time in months, he felt uncertain. The humans had seemed so eager to join galactic society. Their sudden departure made no sense. In a few weeks, he would understand perfectly. In a few weeks, the entire galaxy would understand what they had just lost. But for now, Thexvara simply felt confused as he watched human ships disappear into hyperspace, carrying away the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever encountered: human ingenuity and human pride. 2 weeks after the failed talks at Nexus Prime, Admiral Dongmin Choi stood on the bridge of the human flagship. Through the large windows, he watched merchant ships preparing to leave the Valthran trade hub. The ships moved slowly, carefully, like they had all the time in the world. "Status report," he said to his communications officer. 15 human vessels have departed from Valthran space in the last 6 hours. 23 more are loading cargo and personnel. All departures are proceeding smoothly." Admiral Dongmin nodded. Protocol 7 was working exactly as planned. For years, human military strategists had prepared for this possibility. They knew that joining an established galactic community might not work out. They had created detailed plans for a complete withdrawal. The aliens had no idea how organized humans could be when they made a decision. On the planet below, Director Yoon Ji-han supervised the evacuation of human research teams from the Valthran Science Institute. The work moved quickly and quietly. Human scientists packed their equipment and data files. They said polite goodbyes to alien colleagues who seemed confused by the sudden departure. "But the protein synthesis project is almost complete," pleaded Dr. Veltar, a Velthron biochemist. "Your team has worked for months on this. We are so close to solving the food shortage crisis." Dr. Unji smiled sadly. "I'm sorry, but all human personnel are being recalled to Earth. I'm sure your team can complete the work without us." She knew that was not true. The Valthran scientists had contributed very little to the project. They mostly watched and took notes while humans did the actual research. Without human involvement, the project would die within weeks. But that was no longer her problem. Across the galaxy, Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Engineer Tae Ho Shin led teams that carefully dismantled human-built infrastructure. Power generators, water purification systems, and communication relays disappeared piece by piece. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, Tae Ho's team shut down the fusion reactor that powered the main colony. The device was human-designed and human-built. When the aliens protested, Tae Ho showed them the ownership documents. This reactor belongs to Humanity Industrial Consortium, he explained patiently. We are simply reclaiming our property. But the colony needs power, the Zephyrian administrator argued. 20,000 beings live here. Without the reactor, the life support systems will fail. Tae Ho shrugged. Your species has been in space for 3,000 years. I'm sure you have alternative power sources. The administrator looked nervous. The old nuclear plants are not sufficient for current needs. They barely provide basic life support. Then I suggest you contact your government about upgrading your infrastructure, Tae Ho replied. He continued disconnecting power cables with practiced efficiency. Similar conversations happened throughout human-occupied space. Aliens who had grown used to human presence suddenly found themselves alone. Equipment they had taken for granted disappeared overnight. Services they had come to depend on simply stopped working. The first signs of trouble appeared within days. Space stations reported power fluctuations. Agricultural worlds experienced irrigation failures. Trading posts found their cargo management systems crashing repeatedly. The problem seemed small at first. Aliens assumed they could quickly fix whatever minor issues arose from human departure. After all, they were advanced civilizations with thousands of years of experience. But the problems kept growing. Admiral Dongmin received reports from human observers stationed throughout the galaxy. The picture they painted was troubling. Without human systems, alien infrastructure was failing at an alarming rate. The Nexari Federation is reporting widespread communication breakdowns, his intelligence officer reported. Their quantum entanglement networks are collapsing without human maintenance protocols. What about the Zephyrian shipping lanes? Admiral Dongmin asked. Cargo throughput is down 60%. They relied on human optimization algorithms to manage traffic flow. Without them, ships are waiting days for docking permits. Admiral Dongmin studied the reports with growing concern. He had expected some disruption from human withdrawal, but this level of systemic failure was surprising. How had aliens become so dependent on human systems in just 3 months? The answer came from Earth's economic analysis team. Economist Minho Zhang had been studying galactic trade patterns since first contact. His latest report painted a disturbing picture. Galactic civilization has been stagnant for millennia, he explained during a video conference with Fleet Command. They stopped innovating centuries ago. They simply redistribute existing resources and technologies. When humans arrived with new ideas and solutions, they integrated them immediately without understanding how they worked. So they became dependent. Without realizing it, Admiral Dongmin asked. Exactly. They saw human technology as useful tools, not revolutionary advances. They never bothered to learn the underlying principles. Now that the tools are gone, they have no idea how to replace them. The implications were staggering. In 3 short months, human ingenuity had become woven into the fabric of galactic society. Now that fabric was unraveling. Reports continued streaming in from across the galaxy. The Valthran medical crisis was spreading as human-designed treatment protocols disappeared. The Zephyrian economy was contracting as trade networks collapsed. The Nexari military was struggling with equipment failures. Alien governments began sending messages to Earth. At first, the messages were polite requests for clarification. When would human teams return? Were there temporary technical difficulties? Could Earth provide remote support for critical systems? The human response was always the same. Negotiations have concluded. Humanity wishes the galactic community well in their future endeavors. As days passed, the alien messages grew more desperate. They offered increased compensation for human services. They promised better trade terms. Some even suggested military partnerships and technology sharing agreements. Earth's response never changed. Director Yunji completed her work on the last Velthran research station. As her shuttle prepared to depart, she looked back at the facility they were leaving behind. Human scientists had worked there for months, solving problems that had puzzled aliens for decades. Now those problems would remain unsolved. "Director," her assistant said quietly, "we're receiving emergency broadcasts from the surface. The food production centers are failing without our agricultural protocols. They're estimating widespread famine within months." Yunji felt a pang of sympathy. She had made friends among the Velthran researchers. They were not bad people, just products of a stagnant society that had forgotten how to innovate. But sympathy would not change human policy. The aliens had made their choice when they dismissed humanity as primitive and inferior. Now they would live with the consequences. Engineer Tejo's team completed their final shutdown on a Zephyrian industrial world. As their transport lifted off, power grids across the planet began failing. Factories ground to a halt. Cities went dark. Behind them, millions of aliens faced an uncertain future in a galaxy that had forgotten how to build, how to create, how to solve problems. They had wanted human technology without human partnership. Now, they had neither. The quiet exodus continued, leaving empty spaces where human ingenuity once thrived. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about the difference between using tools and understanding them, and about the price of arrogance. 1 month after humanity's withdrawal from galactic society, economist Minho Zhang sat in his office on Earth, watching alien stock markets collapse in real time. Numbers flashed across his screens in bright red as the Velthran exchange lost 30% of its value in a single day. "Fascinating," he muttered, taking notes on his datapad. "Complete systemic failure." His assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from the Galactic Trade Commission. They want to discuss temporary technical difficulties in their shipping networks." Minho laughed bitterly. "Technical difficulties. That's what they're calling it. Now." The truth was far worse than technical difficulties. The galactic economy was built on foundations that no one had bothered to examine. For centuries, alien civilizations had simply copied each other's methods and technologies. When humans arrived with genuinely new ideas, those ideas spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Now the fire was out, and aliens were discovering that they had forgotten how to make light. On the former plague world of Viel Prime, Dr. Yonseo Kang's research had been progressing beautifully. The mysterious disease that had killed millions of Vielthrons was finally yielding to human medical techniques. The cure was perhaps weeks away, but Dr. Yonseo was now back on Earth, her research terminated by Protocol 7. Velthran medical teams tried to continue the work without her. They had copies of her notes and access to her preliminary data. They had watched her work for months. How hard could it be? Within days, they realized the terrible truth. They could not understand her methods. Human medical science was built on principles that alien doctors had never encountered. Genetic therapy, protein folding, cellular regeneration. These were not just techniques but entire fields of knowledge that required years of study. The plague spread unchecked through Velthran space. Hospitals overflowed with patients. Medical staff worked desperately with treatments that barely slowed the disease's progress. The cure that had been so close became impossibly distant. Similar disasters unfolded across the galaxy. Captain Sungwoo's scout ship observed the chaos from a safe distance, monitoring alien territories as civilization began to crack. "Report," he said to his sensors officer. "The Zephyrian core worlds are experiencing widespread infrastructure failure. Their shipping network has lost 70% efficiency. Cargo vessels are stranded in hyperspace because the navigation algorithms have crashed." Captain Sungwoo nodded grimly. Human mathematicians had developed those algorithms after discovering that alien navigation was centuries out of date. Alien. Ships had been using approximations and corrections that worked poorly, but were good enough for their needs. Human precision navigation had revolutionized galactic shipping. Now that precision was gone, and aliens were rediscovering how dangerous space travel could be. "What about the Nexari Federation?" he asked. "Their defensive systems are failing rapidly. Shield generators are shutting down across their border, worlds. We're detecting increased pirate activity in previously secure sectors." This was perhaps the most shocking development. The Nexari had proudly claimed the galaxy's most advanced military technology. Their shields and weapons had protected galactic trade routes for generations, but human engineers had quietly improved those systems during their brief stay. Power efficiency increased by 40%, shield strength doubled, targeting accuracy improved dramatically. The improvements had seemed minor to the Nexari, just small upgrades to already excellent systems. They never realized that their excellent systems had been barely functional compared to human standards. Now pirate fleets attacked Nexari convoys with impunity. Ships that had been invincible just weeks ago found themselves defenseless. The galaxy's peacekeepers could no longer keep the peace. On Earth, General Byung-ho Lim monitored alien military communications with professional interest. Years of planning were paying off in ways he had never imagined. "The Valethrans are mobilizing their fleet," his intelligence chief reported. "They're discussing military action to force human compliance." General Byung-ho smiled coldly. "Let them come. Our defensive preparations are complete." The aliens had seen only a fraction of human military capability. During the brief period of galactic cooperation, humans had been careful to appear weak and non-threatening. They had shown efficient but unimpressive ships. They had demonstrated useful but limited weapons. It was all carefully calculated deception. Human military technology was decades ahead of anything in the galaxy. Humans had developed their weapons while fighting each other in the deadly laboratories of Earth's wars. Alien weapons were designed for show and ceremony, not actual combat. If the aliens wanted a fight, they would get a very unpleasant surprise. But the aliens were beginning to realize this truth themselves. Intelligence reports suggested growing panic in alien military circles. Their own analysts were finally examining human technology with proper attention. What they found terrified them. Human fusion reactors were not just efficient power sources. They were barely contained stellar cores that could be weaponized with minor modifications. Human navigation systems were not just accurate tools. They were quantum computers that could hack any alien network in minutes. Human medical technology was not just advanced healing. It was biological engineering that could create or cure any disease imaginable. The aliens had invited humanity's most dangerous predators into their homes and mistaken them for house pets. Dr. Won-seok Park received daily reports about alien attempts to reverse engineer human technology. The efforts were almost comical in their futility. Alien scientists tried to understand fusion reactors by taking them apart. They studied human computers by copying their circuits. They analyzed human medicine by memorizing treatment protocols. They understood none of it. Human technology was not just advanced hardware. It was the product of human thinking, human creativity, human willingness to question everything and try impossible solutions. Without that mindset, the technology was meaningless. Aliens could copy human tools, but they could not copy human imagination. Meanwhile, galactic civilization continued its slide toward chaos. Trade networks collapsed. Medical systems failed. Military defenses crumbled. Criminal organizations grew bold as law enforcement weakened. The proud species who had dismissed humanity as primitive now faced a choice: admit their mistake and beg for human help, or watch their civilizations collapse into barbarism. But human pride was as dangerous as human technology. The aliens had insulted humanity's honor, dismissed their sacrifices, and treated them like useful animals. Forgiveness would not come easily. On Nexus Prime Station, Counselor Thexvera stared at reports from across Valthran space. The numbers were stark. Industrial production down 60%. Medical facilities overwhelmed. Military effectiveness degraded beyond repair. 3 months ago, he had called humans primitive and simple-minded. He had laughed at their offers of partnership. He had dismissed their losses as acceptable casualties. Now his own species faced extinction, and only those same humans could save them. The irony was bitter enough to choke on. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council devolved into shouting matches as different species blamed each other for the crisis. Some demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others suggested diplomatic overtures. A few wise voices called for complete surrender to human demands. But no one could agree on anything except one simple truth. Without human help, galactic civilization was doomed. The cracks in the foundation had become a complete collapse, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, human ships watched and waited, their crews knowing that the galaxy's arrogance had finally met its match. Human patience had its limits, and those limits had been reached. 6 weeks after humanity's withdrawal, General Byung-ho Lim stood in the command center deep beneath the Swiss Alps. The room hummed with activity as intelligence officers monitored alien movements across the galaxy. What they saw was both predictable and pathetic. "Report," he said to his chief analyst. "Vilthron fleet movements suggest preparation for military action. However, their ships are operating at severely reduced capacity. Power systems are failing. Navigation is unreliable, and weapons accuracy has dropped to pre-war levels." General Byung-ho nodded. The aliens were desperate enough to consider violence, but too weakened to make it effective. Their military technology had degraded so rapidly that even their newest ships were barely functional. What about diplomatic overtures? Constant and increasingly frantic, Ambassador Su Jin reports receiving over 200 formal requests for negotiations in the past week alone. On Earth's orbital station, Ambassador Su Jin Yu sat across from yet another alien delegation. This one consisted of high-ranking officials from 3 different species, all looking desperate and defeated. The Velthron representative spoke first. "Ambassador, our government is prepared to offer tribute payments equivalent to our entire annual economic output. We need your medical teams to return immediately. The plague has spread to 40 worlds." The Zephyrian delegate added, "Our empire offers territorial concessions, 3-star systems with habitable worlds, plus mining rights, to 17 asteroid belts. We simply need your navigation systems restored." The Nixari representative, a crystalline being that sparkled nervously, made clicking sounds of distress. "Our defensive networks have completely collapsed. Pirates raid our convoys at will. We are prepared to offer political alliance, trade, privileges, and technological sharing agreements." Ambassador Su Jin listened politely, her expression neutral. She had heard similar offers dozens of times in recent weeks. Each alien delegation offered more than the last, their desperation growing with each failed attempt. "I appreciate your generous offers," she said finally. "However, my government's position remains unchanged. Humanity withdrew from galactic society due to fundamental incompatibilities in our approaches to cooperation. Unless those incompatibilities are addressed, discussions cannot proceed." The Velthron representative leaned forward urgently. "Ambassador, millions are dying. Our medical technology cannot stop the plague. Only your people understand the necessary treatments. Then perhaps your people should have shown more respect for human medical expertise when it was freely offered." Su Jin replied calmly. The words hit like physical blows. The aliens remembered the negotiations on Nexus Prime, when they had dismissed human medicine as lucky guessing and human doctors as primitive healers. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, more desperate measures were underway. Dr. Won-Seok Park monitored alien attempts at industrial espionage from his laboratory on Luna. The efforts were increasingly bold and increasingly futile. "They're trying to steal fusion reactor designs again," his security chief reported. "Third attempt this week, Zephyrian Intelligence Services." Dr. Won-Seok laughed. "How did it go?" "Same as always. They managed to copy the external components, but completely missed the quantum field generators. Their stolen blueprints would produce very expensive space heaters." Alien scientists had spent weeks trying to reverse engineer human technology. They tore apart fusion reactors and found conventional hardware. They analyzed human computers and found standard circuits. They studied human medicines and found common chemical compounds. What they could not steal was the invisible foundation beneath it all. Human fusion reactors required quantum field manipulation that aliens had never discovered. Human computers used processing algorithms based on mathematical principles that alien science had never developed. Human medicines worked through biological pathways that alien doctors had never mapped. The hardware was useless without the knowledge, and the knowledge required understanding concepts that aliens had never imagined. Some alien governments grew so desperate that they offered their own citizens as permanent laborers in exchange for human technology. The Vielthran Consortium formally proposed supplying 1 million workers to human colonies in return for medical assistance. The offer was politely declined. Other aliens attempted more direct approaches. Nexari raiders attacked isolated human research stations, hoping to capture scientists and force them to share their knowledge. The raids failed spectacularly, as human defensive systems proved far more advanced than expected. General Byung-ho reviewed combat reports with grim satisfaction. Human military technology had been carefully hidden during the diplomatic period. Now aliens were discovering the true capabilities of human warships. The Nexari attack on Research Station 7 was repelled with minimal effort, his tactical officer reported. Their entire raiding fleet was disabled by a single human frigate. No casualties on our side. Disabled, not destroyed? General Byung-ho asked. Correct, sir. We used neural disruptors to shut down their nervous systems temporarily. They'll recover in a few hours with headaches and wounded pride. It was a perfect demonstration of human capabilities. Advanced enough to stop any attack, but restrained enough to avoid unnecessary killing. The message was clear. Humans could defend themselves against any threat, but they preferred not to cause harm. The same could not be said for alien responses to the crisis. As galactic civilization crumbled, several species turned on each other. Trade disputes became military conflicts. Resource shortages led to territorial invasions. The carefully maintained peace of millennia dissolved into chaos. The Zephyrian Empire blamed the Vielthran Consortium for the failed negotiations with humanity. The Nexari Federation accused both species of incompetent diplomacy. Smaller civilizations chose sides or tried to remain neutral as larger powers prepared for war. All of this was reported back to Earth by human observers stationed throughout the galaxy. The picture they painted was devastating. Galactic civilization was not just failing, it was actively destroying itself. President Mi-young Choi received daily briefings on the deteriorating situation. The reports made for grim reading. Billions of beings suffered as infrastructure collapsed. Medical crises spread unchecked. Criminal organizations grew powerful as law enforcement weakened. Madam President, her chief advisor said during their morning briefing, the humanitarian crisis is reaching catastrophic levels. Perhaps we should consider limited assistance. President Mi-young studied the reports thoughtfully. Limited assistance to whom? The same governments that called our medical teams primitive healers? The same military leaders who called our defense systems crude heating devices? The same trade officials who offered us table scraps for revolutionary technology? Her advisor remained silent. There was no good answer to those questions. The truth was that humanity had tried to join galactic society as equals and been rejected. The aliens had made it clear that humans were welcome only as junior partners providing useful services to their betters. Now those same aliens faced the consequences of their arrogance. They had dismissed human capabilities and insulted human honor. They had treated first contact casualties as acceptable learning experiences. Forgiveness was possible, but it would require more than desperate offers of treasure and territory. It would require acknowledgement of past wrongs and genuine commitment to equal partnership. So far, no alien government had shown such wisdom. Instead, they offered bribes and threats, tribute and conquest. They tried every approach except the one that might actually work: honest apology and request for equal partnership. Elder statesman Jae-sung Kim met with Earth's Leadership Council to discuss the growing crisis. His wisdom had guided human policy through the worst disasters in their history. Now he faced perhaps the greatest challenge yet. The galaxy burns, he said simply. But fires can clear away old growth and make room for new life. The question is whether we allow new growth or simply watch everything burn to ash. President Mi-young understood his meaning. Humanity had the power to save galactic civilization, but at what cost? Should they rescue societies that had shown only contempt for human values? Should they reward arrogance with assistance? Or should they wait for genuine change before offering help? The answer would determine not just the fate of the galaxy, but the future of human civilization itself. Outside Earth's windows, alien ships waited in dark space. Some carried weapons, others carried diplomats. All carried the hopes of dying civilizations. But hope alone was not enough. Pride had consequences, and consequences, once set in motion, followed their own inexorable logic until the very end. 3 months after humanity's withdrawal from galactic society, President Mi-young Choi stood at the observation deck of Earth's orbital station. Through the reinforced windows, she could see alien ships hanging in space like lost birds. Some had been there for weeks, their crews waiting desperately for any sign of human mercy. The reports on her desk painted a picture of complete galactic collapse. The Valthran plague had spread to 60 worlds. The Zephyrian trade network had shrunk to local systems only. The Nexari Federation was fighting 3 separate wars as their former territories descended into chaos. Elder statesman Jae-sung Kim joined her at the window. His ancient face showed the weight of difficult decisions. For 70 years he had guided human policy through war, peace, and everything between. Now he faced perhaps the hardest choice of his long life. The latest casualty reports, he asked quietly. 800 million dead from various crises across alien space, President Mi-young replied. Infrastructure collapse, medical emergencies, regional conflicts, and criminal activity. The numbers grow daily. Jae-sung nodded sadly. And our people's position? Divided. Some call for immediate humanitarian intervention. Others believe the aliens must learn the full consequences of their actions. Our military leaders worry about appearing weak if we help too quickly. Both leaders understood the complexity of the situation. Humanity possessed the knowledge and technology to end the galactic crisis within months. Their medical teams could stop the plagues. Their engineers could restore infrastructure. Their diplomats could mediate the growing conflicts, but helping too eagerly might send the wrong message. It might teach aliens that they could insult and dismiss humanity, then receive rescue when their arrogance led to disaster. The door chimed, and Admiral Dongmin Choi entered with urgent news. Madam President, we have an unprecedented situation developing. A joint alien delegation has requested emergency landing rights. They claim to carry formal apologies from multiple governments. President Mi-young raised an eyebrow. Apologies? That's a new approach. Yes, ma'am. The delegation includes Counselor Thexvara himself, along with senior officials from 7 major civilizations. They request immediate audience to discuss what they call fundamental changes in galactic policy. Elder statesman Jae-sung smiled slightly. Thexvara, the same being who called our casualties acceptable learning experiences and our technology crude but functional. The very same, Admiral Dongmin confirmed. Intelligence suggests he was removed from power by his own government after the crisis began. They're desperate enough to send their former enemies as ambassadors. An hour later, the alien delegation stood in Earth's main conference room. The contrast with their previous meetings was stark. Gone was the arrogant confidence that had marked their earlier negotiations. These beings looked exhausted, defeated, and genuinely afraid. Counselor Thexvara, once proud and dismissive, now stood with his head bowed. When he spoke, his voice carried none of its former authority. President Mi-young, elder statesman Jae-sung, honored representatives of humanity, he began. I come before you not as a conqueror or negotiator, but as a supplicant seeking mercy for my people and forgiveness for my failures. The words hung in the air like a prayer. Ambassador Hyunwoo, who had walked out of the original negotiations, sat quietly and listened. 3 months ago, Thexvara continued, I stood in a different room and called your people primitive. I dismissed your technology as crude. I treated your casualties as acceptable costs of education. I was wrong about everything." He looked up, meeting human eyes for the first time. "My people are dying because of my arrogance. Our civilization is collapsing because we refuse to recognize your true capabilities. We treated you as useful servants when you offered to be equal partners." The Zephyrian representative, her insectoid, features showing clear distress, spoke next. "Our empire's infrastructure has collapsed completely. Our ships cannot navigate safely. Our trade networks have failed. We realize now that what we called crude human heating devices were actually technologies beyond our understanding." The Nexari delegate, its crystalline form flickering with nervous energy, added, "Our military might has proven to be an illusion built on human improvements. Without your systems, we cannot defend our own territory. Pirates and raiders attack our convoys with impunity." One by one, each alien representative admitted their mistakes and failures. They acknowledged that their civilizations had stagnated for millennia, while claiming superiority over genuinely advanced human technology. They confessed that their dismissal of humanity had been based on prejudice rather than evidence. President Mi Young listened carefully to each confession. These were not the proud, arrogant beings who had negotiated with humanity months earlier. These were defeated leaders who finally understood the magnitude of their error. "Your words suggest genuine regret," she said finally. "But words are easy when survival is at stake. What concrete changes do you propose?" Thexavara reached into his diplomatic pouch and produced a thick document. "We have prepared a new treaty framework. Full equality for humanity in all galactic institutions. Equal representation in the Galactic Council. Fair technology exchange agreements. Compensation for previous exploitation attempts." He paused, then continued with obvious difficulty. "We also formally apologize for our treatment of human casualties during first contact. We acknowledge that those deaths were the result of our negligence and prejudice. We request permission to honor those who died and make reparations to their families." The admission struck the room like lightning. For months, aliens had dismissed human deaths as learning experiences. Now they acknowledged responsibility and offered atonement. Elder statesman Jae-sung leaned forward. "And what assurance do we have that these promises will be kept? Your species have long memories. Will you remember this humility when your civilizations recover?" The Zephyrian representative answered honestly. "We cannot guarantee future behavior, but we can guarantee that without human partnership, there will be no future to worry about. Our civilizations face extinction within a year if current trends continue." Dr. Ji-hoon Lee, who had witnessed the original insults, studied the alien faces carefully. "You said our medical techniques were lucky guessing. You called our fusion reactors simple heating devices. You dismissed our achievements as primitive accidents. What has changed your assessment?" Thexvara's voice carried genuine shame. "We tried to replicate your technology without understanding the principles behind it. We copied your devices but could not match their performance. We studied your methods but missed the knowledge that made them work." He gestured to his fellow delegates. "We discovered that our civilizations have not truly advanced in centuries. We have redistributed existing knowledge but created nothing new. When your people arrived with genuine innovations, we were too proud to admit our stagnation." The confession revealed the galaxy's deepest secret. For millennia, alien civilizations had maintained the illusion of progress by copying and trading technologies. They had forgotten how to actually create, invent, and solve problems. Human arrival had exposed this truth in the most brutal way possible. Ambassador Hyun-woo, who had endured months of alien insults, finally spoke. "Humanity sought partnership as equals. You offered servitude disguised as cooperation. You wanted our knowledge but not our voices. Why should we trust you now?" The question cut to the heart of the matter. Trust, once broken, was not easily repaired. Thexvara met his gaze directly. "Because we have learned the cost of arrogance. Our pride nearly destroyed us. We cannot afford such mistakes again." The Nexari delegate added, "We propose permanent human oversight of galactic institutions. Your people would have veto power over major decisions. We recognize that human judgment has proven superior to our own. It was an extraordinary offer. The aliens were essentially proposing to surrender galactic leadership to a species they had dismissed as primitive just months earlier. President Mi-young exchanged glances with her advisors. The opportunity was unprecedented, but so were the risks. Accepting too quickly might suggest human desperation. Refusing might condemn billions to unnecessary suffering. "We will consider your proposals," she said finally, "but understand that any new relationship must be built on genuine equality and mutual respect. Humanity will not accept junior partnership or second-class status." "We understand completely," Thexvara replied. "We seek not human servitude, but human leadership. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that ours have forgotten. We would be honored to learn from your example." The meeting continued for hours as details were discussed and terms negotiated. Slowly, carefully, the framework for a new galactic order took shape. One based not on ancient prejudices but on demonstrated competence and earned respect. As the aliens departed to carry the proposals back to their governments, President Mi-young remained at the conference table with her senior staff. "What do you think?" she asked elder statesman Jae-sung. The old man considered carefully. "They have learned humility through suffering. Whether they remember it through prosperity remains to be seen. But the galaxy burns, and we have the means to extinguish the fire." Admiral Dong-min added, "From a strategic perspective, we hold all the advantages.